Hello. So in this video we're going to talk about Ahmed Yerima's play Yemoja. Now, Yemoja is a Yoruba river goddess, worshipped primarily, or historically worshipped primarily in what's now Nigeria, although actually like Caribbean religions inspired by West African myths, animism, religion, etc., also incorporate Yemoja. So she's an important figure. And so this play takes a particular story about Yemoja and dramatizes it in a way that I find really, really interesting, in part for its connections with Othello, which Yerima has also done a play on. So that's clearly an influence for him. We'll talk about those. So the basic plot of the play is actually not necessarily super intricate. The play starts out with Yemoja, again a river goddess, and Ogun, who is a war god and a god of ironworking, and they're in love. Yemoja wants Ogun to stay, but the drums of war call Ogun away, and so he ends up going, and he leaves Esu, who is a trickster god, in charge of taking care of Yemoja, which is a rookie mistake. Don't ever leave a trickster god in charge of taking care of anything. That is a life lesson for you. So Ishu loves Yemoja. He really wants to have sex with her, but she is not interested in him. She's only interested in Ogun. So Ishu decides that... Oh, the other thing is Ogun leaves Yemoja his Calabash of life, which is basically... A calabash is a sort of gourd that's used for carrying things like water or palm wine or oil or things like this. And so this calabash contains Ogun's life force, his strength, etc., etc. And he tells Yemoja she must never open it. Ishu decides that he's going to use this calabash to trick Yemoja. Basically, he starts talking about all of the other women that Ogun has sex with when he's not there with Yemoja. And he tells her that if she opens the calabash, she'll be able to see him, basically catch him in the act. So she does. Yemoja opens the calabash, which injures her. Basically, it like paralyzes her legs, paralyzes her left hand. So like she's in tremendous pain. At the same time, and we find this out slightly later in the play, but at the same moment, Ogun's strength is drained from him to the point where a young, inexperienced enemy warrior is able to come up and stab him in the shoulder with a spear. So Ogun is now injured in a way that if he had been at full strength, he would never have been injured that way. Back at Yemoja's place, she's in such pain that she's basically like begging Ishu to help fix her, help solve this pain. And so he extorts from her. He initially tries to get her to agree to spend 2 nights with him, and she's reluctant, but she finally, out of desperation, agrees to spend 1 night with him. So Ishu goes and gets his friend Obatala, who's a sort of god of healing, kind of. And Obatala comes and he salves Yemoja's injuries. He takes her into the house to do sort of further medical attention. And at one point, Yemoja laughs, and Ishu outside hears this, and he starts thinking, maybe Yemoja is having an affair with Obatala. So he looks in, he sees Obatala massaging ointment into her legs, and he decides that he's going to take revenge on them by going to Ogun and telling Ogun that Yemoja and Obatala are having an affair behind his back, which is what he does. Ishu goes and finds Ogun on basically the battlefield, says, "Hey man, Yemoja and Obatala are having an affair. I thought you should know about it because I'm your good friend and totally not tricking you at all." So Ogun goes back. He sees Yemoja and Obatala, who have so Yemoja has been sort of drinking and dancing out of joy at being healed. She's trying to get Obatala to have a drink, and he's reluctant to, but finally she convinces him. They end up sort of dancing drunkenly together in celebration, which is when Ogun shows up. And he initially just wants to kill Obatala and Yemoja on the spot, but Ishu convinces him to wait and kill them at the marketplace so that they will be more humiliated, even though they'll be dead. So that's what Ogun decides to do. So they put it off for a couple of days. Yemoja goes to Orunmila, who's one of the most important gods. He's a god of prophecy and of wisdom. And basically she's like, listen, this is a stupid fight. I'm innocent. I did not have an affair with Obatala. Can you do something? And Orunmila is basically like, I'm not really going to do anything about it, but I will give you a prophecy. You will go on an important journey, and it will have something to do with water. At the same time as this is happening, Obatala goes to Shango, who's the god of thunder. And basically Obatala's like, you know what? I'm not really a fighter. You're a good fighter, and you kind of owe me a favor, so would you be willing to fight Ogun in my place? And Shango's basically like, yeah, that sounds fine. I can do that. So the day of the fight comes, and Ogun and Shango are both there, both ready to go, and Yemoja says, and basically they're going to fight for possession of Yemoja. Yemoja says, this is dumb. I didn't have an affair with Obatala. I don't want you to fight over me. I don't want to be the spoils of somebody's victory. So I'm going to go into the ocean. And so Orunmila's prophecy is fulfilled, and Yemoja gets what she wants, which is that the fight doesn't happen because it's now sort of pointless. So what's interesting to me about, or one of the things that's interesting to me about this play, first off, I will say, if you are an Anglophone reader, the way I am, if you read only English, this is a challenging play because so much of this is written in Yoruba. There are a lot of songs, there are a lot of praise songs, or oriki, which is a very common genre in Yoruba tradition. There's some dirges, there's some storytelling songs, there's prayers, etc., etc., even conversations between characters, all of which are written exclusively in Yoruba without translation. So that makes it very difficult to follow a lot of what's going on. So that's the first caveat. But this is a play that strikes me, again, as very similar to Shakespeare's Othello, because it involves a great warrior married to or not in this case married to, I think, but a great warrior involved with, betrothed to, whatever it is, a beautiful woman, or in this case, goddess, who's faithful to him. And then a trusted friend, trickster figure who convinces the mighty warrior that the beloved woman is unfaithful to him. Where things really diverge is at the end, because in Shakespeare's Othello, Othello kills Desdemona, and basically she's like, well, I'm innocent of cheating on you, but you can kill me anyway, because I'm willing to sacrifice myself for your love. Whereas in this play, in Yerima's play, we have a different ending, a very different ending. Because Yemoja says, no, I'm taking charge of this situation. You two are acting like idiots. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to be an even more powerful deity, taking up residence in the sea, in the river, under the water. And you guys can suck an egg. And everybody's like, wow, Yemoja, you totally resolved this situation, and we're going to worship you even more now. So at the end of this play, Yemoja, the wronged woman, she asserts herself. She asserts her legitimacy and her power in a way that Desdemona doesn't necessarily do. So we have that very dramatic difference. Another thing that I really like about this play, we have the importance of rhetoric. I want to say rhetoric, but that's not exactly right. The importance of poetry, of speech, of language, of ritual music, that's really sort of central to this play. And as somebody committed to the power of words, the power of language, etc., that's a very affecting thing for me. So one really good example of this, right before the fight between Ogun and Shango, Ishu, who's sort of running this whole thing, calls on a sort of praise singer, or griot maybe. So praise singer was a sort of formal position in West African culture, where basically a person would memorize the great deeds of a ruler or a leader and their ancestors, and sort of announce them. Basically, sort of like a herald, I guess, in medieval Europe, but much more poetic. So there's this guy, Olohun Io, who's sort of praise singer, and Ishu asks Olohun Io to introduce both Ogun, or both, well, Shango first and then Ogun after. And Ishu actually takes issue with the way that he does it, with how well he does it. Because Ishu says after Olohun Io has introduced Ogun, the second introduction, Ishu says, again, you color Ogun too much with your mouth. Olohun Io, I warn you, praise them, not fight the battle with your mouth. Olohun Io, I warn you. And Olohun Io replies, that was what my father taught me. I only say what my father taught me. I am Olohun Io with a tongue coated in honey, drenched with the power to intoxicate. I sing in the way my father taught me. Do I offend you, my lord? So this is, again, this sort of power of poetry, the power of praise and of song in West African cultures is really, really important, and we get it in this play. And of course, the great sort of next level to that is that Yerima's play itself is a kind of praise song, a praise play for Yemoja.